Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Like and subscribe, it helps me a lot. And if you want a specific recap, just comment down below. Now let's get into it. It was a dark, starry night in the mountains when the sound of a baby's wail pierced the silence. Vincent, a rugged hunter, paused, questioning his senses. Could that really be a baby? He muttered to himself, reaching for the axe mounted on the wall. A rat must have snuck in. If they're here to rob me, they must have terrible luck picking a hunter's hut of all places. Vincent gripped the axe tightly, his sharp instincts kicking in. Moving cautiously around the cabin, he thought, seeing how they dodged all my traps and hid their presence well. They must not be an ordinary thief. But you can't trick my ears. Suddenly, he lunged into the shadows, prepared for a fight. But there was no one. He sighed deeply, feeling the weight of disappointment. Ever since I was told I couldn't have children, I keep hearing phantom cries. His voice trailed off. Then he saw it. A baby swaddled in a worn cloth, lying on the floor. Stunned, Vincent yelled, "What's this?" He crouched down and pressed his ear to the child's tiny chest. A heartbeat. "It's alive," he whispered, overwhelmed. His wife hurried in, alarmed by the commotion. "Vincent, what's going on? Why do you have a baby?" "Well, the thing is, I don't know," he stammered, "but I think this child is meant to be ours." That was when something magical happened. When he opened his eyes and waved his hand, a sudden wind blew in, gathering the clouds. Soon after, rain started pouring from those clouds. The dry land became lush, and the villagers sang songs of happiness. He also protected the village from dangers that threatened it. And with his mystical powers, peace came to the village, and people were no longer thirsty or hungry. But he didn't stop researching for the people of the village. The people considered his abilities to be magical, and so they called him Mage. "Chiron, are you reading again?" said Vincent, now 40, as he returned from chopping firewood. Chiron, now 12, looked up from a thick book. "Dad," he called back. Vincent tossed Chiron into the air, saying, "You're so adorable. Let's go home and eat." As they walked home, Chiron asked, "Dad, how does someone learn to use magic?" Vincent chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Magic? There's not much to magic. If you can fell a tree with a single swing of an axe or take down a bear with one arrow, that's magic, isn't?" Chiron smiled but remained thoughtful. Two village children whispered as they saw Vincent and Chiron walking together. "Oh, it's Mr. Vincent. And Chiron's with him," they said. "Yeah, he's always reading. He never plays with us. I wonder if he can actually read," one boy said. "He's so scrawny. He's nothing like Mr. Vincent. My mom said that they picked him up from somewhere," the other added. "Maybe he was abandoned because he's so weird." Vincent overheard and scowled. "How dare they talk about my son like that?" he thought, clenching his fist. Vincent looked down at Chiron, worried that he overheard the village kids. But Chiron responded, saying, "They hate me 'cause they ain't me." Vincent smiled, saying, "Since you helped me with work today, tomorrow we'll visit the city and buy your favorite fruits." "Really?" Chiron beamed. Vincent smiled, but thought to himself, "I'm sorry for lacking as a father. But no matter what anyone says, you're my son." All Chiron could think was, "I want to know more." About magic. The next day, they arrived in the bustling city of Craze. Chiron's eyes widened at the sights. Merchants calling out their wares, colorful clothing hanging in shops, and street performers entertaining crowds. "Stay at the store of Martin's grandpa while I take care of some business," Vincent said. "Don't wander off, and definitely stay away from nobles." "Don't worry, I won't," Chiron promised. While helping the shopkeeper with inventory, he says, "Thanks for your help. You didn't have to help." Chiron responds, "It's okay. I want to help. But Grandpa, do you know anything about magic?" The shopkeeper raised an eyebrow. Magic? Not much. But that building over there is full of books about it. Excited, Chiron ran to the bookstore. As he leaves, Grandpa says, "Go check it out, but once you're done browsing, come back." When Martin's grandpa will grab the book Chiron was reading, he expected fairy tales, but was surprised to see it was a legitimate textbook on the history of magic and the continent. Did he ask how to use magic? When Chiron arrived at the bookstore, he went to browse. But as he reached for a book, the shopkeeper smacked his hand away. "These books aren't for peasants," the woman barked. "They're expensive, meant for nobles." Chiron frowned, thinking, "These are so expensive. I wonder where Dad buys them from." That's when an old man dressed in fancy clothes entered and requested the books that he pre-ordered. While the shopkeeper was distracted, Chiron quickly flipped through a couple of books, only to realize the books didn't have the information he was looking for. As Chiron leaves, he sees a man carrying a box full of books. He follows the man around the corner only to see the man dump the books into a massive pile of trash books. He realized, "This is where Dad was getting my books from." As Chiron is lost in thought, he sees two bad, noble girls and begins to wonder, what's the difference between me and them? Why is it okay for them to read books and not me? He begins to follow the baddies until he's grabbed on the shoulder by someone. Chiron flinched. The guard says, "Hey kid, this isn't a place where kids should be roaming alone. Beyond these doors is for nobles only. Where are your parents?" Chiron fidgeted nervously. "They're close by," he stammered. "My father's in the city." The second guard squinted at him suspiciously. "He doesn't look like a kid from around here," he muttered. "Probably an orphan. Or worse, an errand boy for bandits." The first guard grabbed Chiron's arm. "All right, kid, you're coming with me." But before the guard could drag him away, Chiron escaped, leaving his drip behind. "Where did he go?" the guard shouted, spinning around. "Go find him, you idiot," the second guard snapped. Chiron fled to a garden near a large wall. His clothes were tattered because of how quickly he moved. As he goes to pick up his missing shoe, he overhears a lesson. What is magic? That will be the top of discussion today. Chiron, shocked by the words, realizes he's at a magic academy. The old man continues. "What do you think is the most important talent for learning magic?" An old man asked a group of students. "Knowledge," one guessed. "Hard work," said another. "Money," a third offered. The old man shook his head. "None of those. The most important talent is insight." The students looked confused. "What's insight?" one asked. The old man smiled. "Insight is the ability to understand truths that others cannot see. For example, everyone knows that 1 + 1 = 2. But can anyone explain why?" The students fell silent. Despite not having concrete proof, we are able to understand that 1 + 1 = 2. That's the essence of insight, he explained. Magic, like mathematics, is a law of the world. It has always existed. Insight allows us to feel and accept those laws faster than knowledge or hard work ever could. Using insight, if you hone your talent, you can become a genius mage. From his hiding spot, Chiron's heart raced. Will I ever have the chance to become a mage? That's right, the old man suddenly said, turning toward Chiron. You there, behind the wall, care to share your thoughts? Chiron froze. He wanted to run, thinking about what they would do when they realized he was a commoner. But he hesitated, thinking, if I don't take this chance, I'll regret it forever. Summoning his courage, he climbed the wall to see a group of kids and an old man in front of a dazzling castle. The old man smiled. Did you come to keep this old man company? The old man is the headmaster of the Althea's Magic Academy. Myra Althea's a grade 4 certified mage. This is how Chiron Arian's journey began. Chiron climbed over the wall, landing on the other side where a group of students surrounded the headmaster. He's not a noble, one of the kids whispered, pointing at Chiron. I think he's a commoner. "You can't be here," another shouted. "Get out." Chiron froze, unsure of what to say. His wide eyes darted between the kids and the headmaster, who raised a hand to calm the crowd. "It's all right," the headmaster said with a gentle smile. "Come here, boy. What did I say that interested you?" Chiron hesitated before stepping forward. I want to see magic," he admitted. The kids burst into laughter. "You never seen magic before? I read about it in books, but have never seen it." "Liar. What kind of commoner reads books about magic?" one jeered. "It doesn't matter," Chiron said, his voice firm. "Please, just show me." The headmaster chuckled. "Very well. I'll show you a simple spell that creates wind." He raised his hand, and a gentle breeze began to stir. The students cheered as the wind grew stronger, swirling around them. Chiron's eyes widened in wonder. "Wind," he whispered. "How is there wind?" The gust intensified, lifting the children off their feet. They shrieked with delight, spinning in the air like leaves. Chiron, however, clung to the air, screaming in fear. As the others landed softly on the grass, Chiron realized he was still floating. The headmaster lowered him gently to the ground. "How was it?" the headmaster asked with a grin. "That is magic." Chiron stared at him, breathless. "What is magic?" The headmaster tilted his head as he began to give an example. Chiron interrupts in an earnest tone. "It doesn't matter if I can't understand it fully. Just tell me the truth." The other children gasped at his boldness. Even their teachers didn't speak to the headmaster like that. The headmaster laughed heartily. "Very well," he said. "Magic, child, is the act of stepping beyond common sense. It's a mental operation that seeks the truth of reality." Chiron said, "Magic is irrational, yet it often brings us closer to the truth." The headmaster laughed heartily. "Was that written in the books as well?" "No," Chiron said confidently. "Many great ideas, once dismissed as absurd, were later embraced as new knowledge." "Perhaps the truth lies hidden in what seems irrational," Chiron nodded. "So, what do I need to do to learn magic?" The headmaster studied him thoughtfully. A brilliant mind, he thought. Even if it's difficult, he's trying to obtain the correct information for himself. Does he truly believe that he can do it? But unfortunately, he's a commoner. Rather than explain, the headmaster said, "I'll show you." He turned to one of the students. "Shumin, enter the spirit zone." Shumin closed her eyes and concentrated. After a moment, she opened them and said, "I have entered the zone." The headmaster says, "All right, can you guess how many coins I'm holding?" Shumin says, "There are 6. The headmaster held out his hand, revealing 6 coins. The kids shout in amazement. When a magician enters the spirit zone, they become aware of their surroundings with supernatural clarity. This state allows them to sense everything, even the number of leaves on a distant tree. A magician who enters the zone is able to sense the outside world to a supernatural degree and is ultimately able to dominate it." Chiron's mind raced. "It's not about counting," he thought. "It's about perceiving everything at once. Maybe I can do it too." The headmaster continues saying, "First, you sense yourself. Then, erase yourself. In doing so, you'll leave only the mind behind, ready to feel the world. Although anyone can do it, not everyone can do it." Chiron responds, "If I can't sense myself, then it'll be impossible to erase myself." The headmaster responds, saying, "Try for yourself." While thinking, he continues to amaze me. But in the end, if he can't enter the spirit zone, he won't be able to learn magic at all. Chiron closed his eyes, focusing on his body. He thought, "What is myself? A brain? No, that's just an organ. The sense and reality I feel cannot exceed the concept of the brain. It's not defining it, but sensing it." Slowly, he dismissed each sensation, his heartbeat, his breath, the weight of his limbs, until only the sensitive mind remained. When he opened his eyes, he looked at the headmaster, sweat dripping down his face. "How was it? What did you feel?" the headmaster asked. "Sound," Chiron whispered. "I heard everything." The headmaster thought to himself, so he couldn't do it as expected. The things that happen inside the spirit zone are in another dimension. Synesthesia, smelling sounds, tasting light, and feeling the form of the sorcery on your skin. The headmaster smiled faintly and patted Chiron on the head, saying, "Well done. If you keep practicing, you'll be able to hear many more sounds." All right, that will conclude today's lesson. Let's return to school. As the headmaster and students returned to the academy, he glanced back at Chiron thinking, such talent. If only he were born a noble, then wouldn't he have been able to achieve something similar to these children? Well, there are a lot of talented children in the world. Chiron watched them go, then leaped back over the wall. Landing on the other side, he thought to himself, it really worked. As Chiron ran from the academy, his heart pounding, he whispered to himself, "I heard a massive sound. Is this really the spirit zone?" A towering blue tree appeared before him, its ethereal branches stretching endlessly, with shimmering blue birds flitting about. The sight overwhelmed him. "It felt like I was torn to pieces and scattered across the world," he muttered, trembling. "For a moment, I was the world itself." The immensity of the experience sent him fleeing from the garden, tears streaming down his face. "I couldn't help but shudder at the infinite vastness," he thought, his breath ragged. "For an instant, I escaped my body and became infinite." Lost in his thoughts, Chiron collided with the back of a tall, green-haired man. The impact flung him backward into a barrel. Dazed, he scrambled to his feet, stammering, "I'm sorry." The man turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. "What the heck are you doing?" he snapped, grabbing Chiron by the collar. "You're pissing me off, kid. If you hit someone, it's natural to pay for it." "I didn't mean to," Chiron began, but the man cut him off. "Do you think sorry is enough?" the man sneered. "Are you with the Wolf Gang? Here to kill me, huh?" Another voice interrupted. "What's going on here?" The green-haired man turned to see a young noblewoman approaching, her presence commanding. "Miss Amy," he said, suddenly deferential. "What brings you here? Are you bored again?" Chiron, seeing a chance for help, thought desperately and noble. "Maybe she'll save me." Amy glanced at Chiron. "What happened?" "This kid tried to kill me," the man said, his tone dripping with nervousness. "That's not true," Chiron protested. "I just bumped into him by accident." One of the other gangsters kicked him, sending him sprawling in pain. "Shut up, you little brat," he growled. "Think we believe you?" They all laughed as another taunted. "Bring your mother here. She must have been hiding after giving birth to trash like you." Their words stung, but Chiron's eyes hardened. "Are you mad, kid?" One of the gangsters sneered, kicking him again. They all began to jump Chiron, not even giving him a one-on-one. Amy finally stepped forward. "Stop it. You'll kill him at this rate." She knelt beside Chiron, who whispered through tears, "I didn't do anything." Amy sighed. "Why don't we call it a day? Surely, you have something more entertaining to do." The gangsters exchanged glances before one said with a grin, "We were thinking of selling him to the village in the south. He's just a commoner. No one will care." Chiron's heart sank. "Mom, Dad." Amy crouched beside him again. "A slave shouldn't have any flaws, right? Let's check him over." Chiron's mind reeled as the gangsters laughed. "Take it off, kid," one demanded. "What are you waiting for? Take it off?" Chiron thought, panicking. Amy had no intention of having Chiron stripped. She only wanted to see his face. She's worried that Chiron may be losing his mind. As the gangsters closed in, Chiron's vision blurred. Everything slowed. Rats scurried. Birds flapped their wings, then froze, turning blue. This is the spirit zone, Chiron realized, his surroundings tinged with the surreal hues of his memory. He heard the headmaster's voice echo, "I'll show you a spell that creates wind." The gangster's voice snapped him back. "Are you deaf, kid? Do what I said. I'm not joking." Before they could act, a powerful gust of wind erupted, flinging the gangsters into the air. He looked up, shocked by his mad skills. The gangsters began crashing to the ground with screams of pain. Their limbs twisted unnaturally, and they writhed, begging for mercy. Amy thundered toward Chiron in disbelief. "Hey, yo, what was that?" she questioned. "Where did you learn magic? How can a commoner?" The commotion drew the townsfolk. "What happened?" someone called out, running toward the scene. Amy leaped away, her movements swift and precise, disappearing across rooftops. Chiron watched her in amazement. How does she move like that? Realizing the trouble he was in, Chiron bolted. "There's no way they'll listen to me," he thought. "Mom. Dad, this world is cold." At the Grand Karmas estate, Amy stormed inside. "Damn it, I can't believe that kid beat us." Her father, Shakura Karmas, sighed. "Skipping class again, Amy?" "I've already learned everything," Amy retorted. "It's not fun anymore." Shakura shook his head. "Even a genius needs discipline. If you're careless, you'll get blindsided someday." Amy paused, considering his words. Then she turned to him. "Dad, do you know anyone at a magic academy? Could you introduce me to them?" In the snowy mountains, Chiron's father called out desperately, "Chiron, where are you?" His mother answered anxiously, "He went to the logging area to get wood." "What? It's still snowing. Anyone to chop wood?" "I'll go look for him," his father said, grabbing his coat. As he trudged through the snow, his mind wandered. "During spring, when I first brought him to the city, I almost lost him. He said he simply got lost. But what really happened?" He spotted a tree with fresh axe marks, a sign of Chiron's practice. Behind it, Chiron was coughing and sweating, an axe in his hand. Chiron muttered to himself, "That magic. That day, I triggered it unconsciously. I haven't been able to use it since. I know the result due to insight, but I don't know the missing pieces because I lack knowledge of magic." He gasped as his surroundings shifted. The forest turned blue, the spirit zone awakening within him. Every vein running through the trees glowed with clarity. "I'm able to enter the spirit zone. If I'm in the spirit zone, I can feel everything, touch, shape, smell. I can feel every bit of this tree all at once." A shining mark within the tree caught his attention. Guided by instinct, Chiron struck the glowing spot. The tree disintegrated with a single blow, the sound of thunder echoing across the forest. "I can feel it," Chiron yelled. "This is magic." From behind another tree, his father watched in shock. "What did I just see?" "That's the thunderstrike." The thunderstrike phenomenon. When a tree falls in one strike by targeting its weak spot, it's said to sound like thunder. Chiron stood silently, staring at the fallen tree. "This is the first time I've succeeded," he thought. "Out of hundreds of attempts, I've done it, but flukes aren't enough. I need solid knowledge. Tomorrow, and every day after, I'll keep at this, for the chance that will come someday." 3 years passed. Chiron meditated atop a tree stump, then stood and picked up his axe. "You don't see it with your eyes," he said to himself. "You feel with your eyes." With effortless precision, he executed another thunderstrike, felling a tree instantly. 5 hours of meditation, and I almost wanted to stop. But it's never enough, he thought, looking around at the forest of blue trees he had felled. It's like I've become one with nature itself. The shaking bushes, the worms wiggling underground, the sound of roots absorbing moisture. Even this is not enough to savor it all. He recalled the headmaster's words. If that's possible, a different world will unfold. As the sun set, Chiron walked home, the orange leaves of autumn scattering underfoot. "Let's go home," he said softly. When he neared his home, an expensive white carriage stood outside, its horses gleaming in the twilight. "Do we have guests?" he wondered. Opening the door, he found his father sitting at the table with an elderly man with white hair. "Ah, you're back," his father said. "Come and greet our guest." The man introduced himself. "I am Temurin, assistant butler of the House of Ojent." Chiron bowed politely. "It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Chiron." Temurin scrutinized him. "I've come to meet you specifically," he said. Chiron was shocked by the butler of a second-class noble family looking for him. Grabbing Chiron's face to examine him, he said, "Do you know how to read?" Chiron replied humbly, "I've read a little since I was young." Temurin continued his inspection. "And can you explain what you were doing out there?" Unsure of what to say, Chiron remained silent. The butler smiled slightly. "You seem like a good child. Smart, well-mannered. You read too. Have you ever thought about working for the House of Ojent?" "Working?" Chiron asked. "The Ojent family's library holds nearly 10,000 books, many of them invaluable to mages," Temurin explained. "We need someone to help sort and catalog them. It's a 2-year position. Others will handle the heavy lifting, but you and I would be responsible for organizing the books." Chiron's mind raced. A library, a chance to access the knowledge of mages. Temurin's tone turned serious. "However, this task is confidential. If even one book is leaked or word of this project gets out, you and your family's lives will be taken. Do you understand?" Chiron's father clenched his fists. Chiron thought to himself, "So, that's why they look so worried. Your lives are on the line, so we'll pay you handsomely," Temurin continued. "More than you'd ever earn hunting." He said to Vincent, "It looks like it was worth it to take good care of your son." Chiron's father stood abruptly. "I didn't agree because of the money," he shouted. "I just want Chiron to achieve his dreams." The butler laughed heartily. "Dreams? Do you really believe he'll build a career from this? Stop dreaming. If you didn't do it for money, then why would you request that I use your son?" Chiron's father yelled. "You said that he could read books." Temurin laughed coldly. "You think that will matter? Even if he can read, it's not enough. He'll never be anything more than what he is now. Have you been lying to your son like this?" In the past, Chiron's father saw how quickly Chiron grasped reading books and how he began to read for knowledge. He thought he may have the blood of a noble. He begins to second-guess himself, thinking that if he was raised by nobles, he would have been better off. He shook this feeling off, saying that Chiron is his son. But when he began to work in the mountains, he was afraid that he was wasting Chiron's potential. Chiron's father saw the butler in town asking for a commoner who could read books. He volunteered Chiron. Overwhelmed with guilt, he dropped to his knees. "Please," he begged, tears streaming down his face. "He's smart, talented. Please let him read those books." In the present, Chiron's father shook with anger, tears in his eyes. "I don't need any money. If I knew this would happen, I never would have begged like that. Get out of my house right now," he screamed at the top of his lungs. Chiron's father's voice trembled with anger as he glared at Temurin. "How dare you mock my family just because we have little money?" Temurin sighed, thinking, it can't be helped. Some people don't know their place. Before the tension escalated, Chiron stepped forward. "Father, please stop. I'll do it." Temurin turned to him in shock. "Chiron, are you serious? This isn't a game. If even the smallest rumor gets out, it'll cost you your life." Chiron nodded firmly. "I understand, but please let me do this. I promise not to leak anything, and even if things go wrong, I won't blame anyone." Temurin studied him for a moment before speaking. "If you're that determined, then I'll return in a week to pick you up. But know this, once you step into the manor, there's no turning back until the task is complete. With that, he turned and walked to his carriage. As the sound of hooves faded, Chiron's father yelled, "Why, Chiron? Why accept this? Those nobles are just looking for someone to sacrifice. It's my fault. I'll take responsibility. Just decline this madness." Chiron smiled, tears streaming down his face. "Father, thank you for giving me this gift." His father wept openly. "Don't worry, Chiron. Do you think your father won't protect you? Come back safely. I'll make sure no one lays a finger on our family. Have I finally raised you well?" he thought, with his heart heavy. 1 week later, they returned. Chiron's father signed the required documents with trembling hands. Immediately after, Chiron was escorted away by 2 butlers. As the carriage prepared to leave, Chiron entered the spirit zone one last time. In the blue glow of his heightened senses, he saw his parents standing by the doorway, clutching each other, tears in their eyes. "Don't be shaken, Chiron," he told himself. "This is the chance of a lifetime." As the carriage rolled away, he thought, "This is a double-edged sword too. I'm stepping into the world of immense power. Can I survive for 2 years?" The journey to the Ogent family estate was long. A butler explained, "The Ogent estate lies within the city of Craze, in the kingdom of Thormia. The Ogent family is a warrior house, known for producing powerful swordsmen. The current head, Lord Bishop Ogent, is a 4th-class knight, and they control much of the city's power." Chiron stared in awe as they approached the estate. Orange autumn trees framed a magnificent mansion, backed by towering mountains. "That's incredible," Chiron whispered. The butler smirked. "Impressed? You should be. But don't be fooled. This place is full of monsters." Another butler walking beside them frowned. "Watch your words, or you'll lose your neck." Chiron walked in disbelief, still in shock that he would be working for a second-class, noble family. The Ogent family. Chiron was escorted to the living quarters. Once inside, Temirin led Chiron through the estate. "This is the office for butlers in your lodging. Your task will be to sort books in the library, which are being prepared for transfer to a new facility." When they entered the library, Chiron's eyes widened. Shelves stretched endlessly, filled with thousands of tomes. This is incredible." Temirin laid out the rules. "You'll work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. After that, it's your free time, but you're not allowed to leave the estate or enter the manor without permission. The common butler will teach you proper etiquette. Any questions?" Chiron shook his head. "No, I'll do my best." Temirin nodded. "Good. You start tomorrow." The following days tested Chiron's discipline. Dressed in butler attire, he organized books meticulously. He realized why only one person was assigned to this monumental task. The organization standards must be consistent. A book like The History of Swordsmanship could fit into either professional swordsmanship or comprehensive history. Only one person can make such decisions. As he worked, he uncovered a profound realization. All knowledge is connected. Its backbone is history. When history is thoroughly understood, it reinforces every other field. Across the 10,000 books here, 850 are about history. I'll read them all in 2 years. This is my path to becoming a mage. He hears the door open and thinks it's the vice butler. He hides the books because he's not officially allowed to be reading. Temirin greets Chiron and realized he was working overtime again. He tells Chiron, "You must maintain your health. If you ruin your condition too fast, you will have to take responsibility." As Temirin is about to leave, he sends a sharp glare towards Chiron. Chiron is worried that Temirin realized that he was reading books. Temirin walks up to Chiron and tells him to maintain his butler uniform and cut his hair because he is not only a representation of himself, but also the house of Ojent. As Temurin leaves, Shiren sighs in relief. Late at night, Shiren stayed in the library, secretly reading. He struggled to absorb the dense texts. He was shocked by how much he had to memorize to understand every event clearly, but he steeled his resolve. While he attempted to power through, he dozed off from exhaustion. That evening, the vice butler caught him lacking. Picking up the book Shiren had been reading, he muttered, "So dull. He's been reading the same book for a whole month? Does he think success comes from just studying? He's not even reading any practical books. If he was, I would have stopped him from reading." Glancing at the sleeping Shiren, he sighed. At least he's harmless. Just an idiot with big dreams. 3 months had passed since Shiren began working in the vast library of the Ojin estate. Sorting books had become second nature. A butler approached, holding a stack of books. "Shiren, are these the ones you organized today?" "Yes," Shiren replied. "You can take the whole lot." Shiren's efficiency had improved, and he learned much from listening to the chatter of the male servants. One servant approached him, saying, "I'll be borrowing this book." Shiren glanced up. "The second young master is borrowing books again, isn't he? But he hasn't returned the last one he took. If it's lost, it could cause him trouble." The servant sighed. "You're right, but he insists on handling it himself. Honestly, the nobles couldn't care less if a book goes missing. It's us butlers who have to worry." Shiren thought to himself, "It figures. There probably aren't any truly important books in this library, but still, I have to be careful." As the servant left, Shiren reflected, the nobles can afford to be careless because of their power and privilege. But commoners like us? One mistake could cost us everything. Shiren resolved to keep his head down, striving for a quiet life. One afternoon, the quiet was shattered when a blue-haired boy in ragged clothes burst into the library. "He's a boomer," he muttered, panting heavily. Shiren looked up, startled. "What's going on?" The boy frantically scanned the room. "On a day like this, who cares if I rest a bit?" That blue hair, Shiren realized. He's the youngest son of the Lord, Rian Ojent. A furious voice echoed behind him. "Rian, how dare you run away? When I catch you, you'll be running another 100 laps." "Damn it," Rian cursed. He grabbed Shiren by the shoulders. "Don't tell him I'm here, okay?" He dove under a desk, hiding from view. Moments later, an older man stormed into the library. "Rian, I know you're here." "You there," he barked at Shiren. "Did a boy with blue hair come through here?" Shiren blinked innocently. "From what I saw, he looked like the youngest young master." "But who are you?" The man scowled. "I'm his swordsman instructor, and I have every right to discipline that rascal. Now tell me where he is, or you'll regret it." Shiren sighed and gestured toward a nearby shelf. "I think he's hiding over there." The instructor immediately pounced, dragging a screaming Rian from his hiding spot. "Master, this is a misunderstanding," Rian yelled as he was hauled away by his leg. "You need mental training more than sword training," the instructor growled, pulling him out of the library. As he was dragged off, Rian shot a murderous glare at Shiren. "You'll pay for this." Rumors spread that Rian had been taken to the mountains for a grueling month of training. Meanwhile, Shiren focused on his work, diving deeper into the library's history books. The first book had taken him 20 days to finish, but now he read with increasing speed, completing 82 books in just 4 months. "As I thought," Shiren mused, "the beginning is always the hardest. Once I've laid a foundation with about 200 books, the remaining 650 will be easier to absorb." Yet doubts crept into his mind. Is studying history the right path? But as he read about the great mages of the past, his resolve solidified. A scholar invents theories. A mage materializes them. In that sense, scholars and mages are the same. However, not all scholars can become mages because they lack the spirit zone, the heightened mental state that bridges knowledge and magic. With my spirit zone and a wealth of knowledge, I can become a true mage. Later that day, the library door slammed open. "Hey, you jerk!" Rian's voice rang out. His clothes were tattered, and his face was filled with fury. He said, "I've been waiting for this day to come." Chiron sighed, so persistent. "Are you really here for that?" "Of course." Rian snapped. "Do you know what I went through because of you? I climbed cliffs, hung on for dear life, and nearly died countless times, all because of you. I asked you for a favor and trust you, and you snitched on me and betrayed me." Chiron winced. "I didn't snitch on you. I just told the truth." Rian grabbed him by the collar. "Don't give me that. If you weren't going to help, you should have refused my request outright." It's easy for the strong to twist logic to suit themselves, Chiron thought. He asked Rian, "Then what should I do?" Rian was stunned by Chiron's calm attitude, even though he had just started working as a butler for his family. Rian sneered. "You're looking down on me, Daha? Fine. I'll show you what I'm made of. Follow me." Chiron hesitated but complied, following Rian into the cold night. They arrived at the training grounds. Chiron was worried about the safety of his family, so he decided to just take all of the hits and then leave. Rian tossed a wooden sword at Chiron, saying, "Take this." Chiron caught it in shock. "What is this for?" "It's a duel," Rian declared with a grin. "I'm not cowardly enough to let this slide. You'll take strikes from my sword until you learn your place." Chiron panicked. "What did I even do to deserve this? As a servant of the Ojit family, you're supposed to protect us. Instead, you sold me out because you were afraid of getting beaten," Rian shouted, his eyes blazing. Chiron trembled at the crazed look in Rian's eyes. Rian smirked. "I may be looked down upon by my family, but I won't allow it from you. Bring it on. I'll give you 3 free strikes. After that, it's my turn." Chiron thought, "What do I do? What can I do?" The only option left is 2. Heart-pounding, Chiron lunged at Rian. The first strike was effortlessly deflected. 1. Rian counted aloud. Chiron swung again, only to be blocked. 2. Desperate, Chiron entered the spirit zone. His senses heightened and his focus sharpened. He lunged at Rian, swinging with all his might. A loud crack echoed as the wooden sword shattered. Rian stared at Chiron in shock. What was that?" Thanks for tuning in to No Limit Recaps. If you enjoyed today's recap, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to avoid missing any of our future videos. If you want this manhwa's next part, drop it in the comments. Got a favorite manhwa or a series you want me to cover next? Drop it in the comments below. Your suggestions keep this channel growing. You can also join our Discord for more updates, sneak peeks, and manhwa discussions. Until next time, stay limitless.